think we're starting here shortly. Forgot to set this up. 1 second. Oh, isn't that just awesome? Okay. Alrighty. Just getting into this. Welcome, everybody. It's May 6, 2026. It is a huge news day. Trump pauses Project Freedom after less than 48 hours, citing progress on Iran negotiations. And at the same time, last night, Vivek Ramaswamy just won the GOP nomination in Ohio against Amy Acton. And you're gonna hear my thoughts on that. I think that Vivek Ramaswamy is not America first, and I would recommend any Ohioans to vote for Amy Acton over Vivek Ramaswamy. And the reason being is because I believe that the America First movement can definitely have more power over that scenario versus allowing, obviously an anchor baby to win the presidency potentially one day. I mean, it's kind of weird, right? It's kind of weird when you look at all of that. But we're going to talk more about it. We're going to discuss everything that's happening with Trump pausing Project Freedom. And actually, the markets responded pretty well to all of this. Surprisingly. And so it's actually pretty good news, so we say. And there's also been some insider trading, and Howard Lutnick also voluntarily spoke in court today, but apparently he was caught under perjury. So we're going to look at all of this. So be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe. Enjoy the show. Going to be about an hour and a half, and we're going to look into all the news, all the biggest headlines. We're going to analyze everything, and listen, what do you guys think is going to truly become of all of this? Honestly, at the end of the day, I think we're looking at a true revolution overall. So again, May 6, 2026, Trump just paused the Project Freedom after less than 48 hours, citing progress on Iran negotiations. And Vivek Ramaswamy won the GOP nomination last night against Casey Putsch. And at the same time, he will be going up against Amy Acton now, who is a Democrat. And we're going to see how you guys feel about it. What do you guys think should be the rightful winner of Ohio? You think it should be Vivek Ramaswamy as a GOP candidate? I don't think so. So we're going to look into all of it. Let's look into the news. Let's get right into it. Personally, I think it's going to be a pretty big day. So let's get into the news. So let's read this article. This first one comes from Fox News. President Donald Trump said he is pausing Project Freedom to reopen the Strait of Hormuz for a short period. As negotiations with Iran show great progress, while describing the recent conflict as a limited skirmish and saying Tehran knows what not to do. War Secretary Pete Hegseth said Tuesday the U.S. blockade on Iranian ports is holding, while the attacks on Iran since the ceasefire was announced are below the threshold of the U.S. restarting major combat operations. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Tuesday that the Operation Epic Fury is over, but refused to let up on sanctions, warning Iran is still facing generational destruction to their economy. As Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi arrived in Beijing on Tuesday to meet his Chinese counterpart, Rubio warned from the White House that any countries violating the U.S. sanctions on Iran would face secondary sanctions. So the Wall Street Journal's opinion warns that the Iran deal risks delay and ambiguity over nuclear weapons. So this is pretty much the biggest news today. Executed Iranian prisoners described torture before death, report says. 3 Iranian prisoners executed over the weekend described torture, forced confessions, and denied rights in messages shared with Jerusalem Post before their deaths, according to reporting citing the Kurdistan Human Rights Network. Yogob Karampour, 43, and Nasir Bakerzadeh, 26, were hanged Saturday, while Mehrab Abdozadeh, 28, was executed Sunday on, oh my God, these names are just like ridiculous. These words are ridiculous, like these Arabic words. I can't pronounce them. Oromia Central Prison. None were granted final visits with their families, the report said. So we're going to look more into all of these stories. Pretty big stuff. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to be huge. This was Donald Trump's Truth Social post that he put out, assuming Iran agrees to give what has been agreed to, which is perhaps a big assumption. The already legendary Epic Fury will be at an end, and the highly effective blockade will allow the Hormuz Strait to be open to all, including Iran. If they don't agree, the bombing starts, and it will be, sadly, at much higher level and intensity than it was before. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. And again, that comes directly from his Truth Social. And so here was some of his statements on it. Let's take a listen to this clip. This was just recently today.
Facing an opponent right now in Iran that has refused to submit. You seem optimistic now that you may be closer to a deal. What's different about this moment now than in other moments where a deal has seemed close?
Well, why do you say they refused to submit? You don't know that. You don't know what's going on.
They were firing on U.S. ships a few days ago.
Yeah, no, a few days ago is a long time ago. You know, in the world of war, a few days ago. No, they want to make a deal bad.
We will see.
And we'll see if we get there. If we get there, they can't have nuclear weapons. You know, it's very simple. But,
put a nickel in the jar.
What's not to
Every time you hear a nuclear weapon of Iran.
59 ships, and now every ship is blown to pieces and lying at the bottom of the water. They had an air force, lots of planes, and they don't have any planes. They don't have any anti-aircraft. They don't have any radar left. Their missiles are mostly decimated. They have some. They have probably 18, 19%, but not a lot by comparison to what they had. And their leaders are all dead. So I think we won. Now it's only a question.
I mean, I don't really know about that.
If we left right now Iran, it would take them 20 years to rebuild. You would call that, we're in good shape, right? Fantastic. We're in good shape.
We'll see.
And now we're doing well. Now we have to get what we have to get. If we don't do that, we'll have to go a big step further. But with that being said, they want to make a deal. We've had very good talks over the last 24 hours, and it's very possible that we'll make a deal.
Yes, so that was a big statement by Trump. And at the same time, we also have from Axios, exclusive U.S. and Iran closing in on a one-page memo to end the war, officials say. The White House believes it's getting close to an agreement with Iran at a one-page memorandum of understanding to end the war and set a framework for more detailed nuclear negotiations, according to 2 U.S. officials and 2 other sources briefed on this issue. The big picture is that the U.S. expects Iranian responses on several key points in the next 48 hours. Nothing has been agreed to yet, but the sources said it was the closest the parties had been to an agreement since the war began. Among other provisions, the deal would involve wouldn't involve Iran committing to a moratorium on nuclear enrichment, the U.S. agreeing to lift its sanctions and release billions in frozen Iranian funds, and both sides lifting restrictions around transit through the Strait of Hormuz. Many of the terms laid out in the memo would be contingent on a final agreement being reached, leaving the possibility of renewed war or an extended limbo in which the hot war has stopped, but nothing is truly resolved. The reality check remains. The White House believes the Iranian leadership is divided, and it may be hard to forge consensus across the different factions. Some U.S. officials remain skeptical that even an initial deal will be reached. U.S. officials expressed optimism about a deal at several points during previous rounds of negotiations and during the current war, but have yet to reach one. But the 2 U.S. officials said President Trump's decision to back off his newly announced operation in the Strait of Hormuz and avoid a collapse of the fragile ceasefire was based on progress in the talks. So behind the scenes, 14-point memorandum of understanding, MOU, is being negotiated between Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner. Oh, well, that's not good. We don't really know how much we can trust Jared Kushner, right? He's been kind of running the entire Abraham Accord, so we can't really trust that. Several Iranian officials, both directly and through mediators. Meanwhile, right, Israel is literally rejecting the ceasefire and all of this stuff still to this day. In its current form, the MOU would declare an end to the war in the region and the start of a 30-day period of negotiations on a detailed agreement to open the Strait, limit Iran's nuclear program, and lift U.S. sanctions. Those negotiations could happen in Islamabad or Geneva, 2 sources said. Geneva? Well, maybe that's a good sign. Geneva is where World War II ended, obviously, the Geneva Convention, as you understand, if you read your history books at least. If the negotiations collapse, U.S. forces would be able to restore the blockade or resume military action, the U.S. officials said. So, going on to our next story, I mean, we're really looking at all of this, and we're looking across multiple forms of media and what they're all saying. This is Al Jazeera. Iran says the Strait of Hormuz passage to be ensured after the U.S. pauses operations. Navy of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, says safe transit will be ensured with new procedures in place. Safe transit through the Strait of Hormuz will be ensured as the United States threats end, and with new procedures in place, the Navy of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, said after the U.S. said it was pausing operations to help stranded ships pass through the waterway. The IRGC statement posted on X on Wednesday did not specify that the new procedures entailed. It thanked owners and captains of the ships for respecting Iranian regulations when moving through the Strait. So, when we look at all of this, the announcement comes a day after U.S. President Donald Trump halted the Project Freedom military operation to guide stranded vessels through the waterway. On Tuesday, the U.S. president said he would briefly pause the operation, citing great progress toward a comprehensive agreement with Iran and saying it came at the request of mediator Pakistan. The U.S. naval blockade of Hormuz, however, remains in effect, Trump said. In a social media post on Wednesday, Trump said the war could end if Iran agrees to give what has been agreed to already. Assuming Iran agrees to give what has been agreed to, which is perhaps a big assumption, the already legendary Epic Fury will be at an end, and the highly effective blockade will allow the Hormuz Strait to be open to all, including Iran, he wrote on Truth Social. If they don't agree, the bombing starts, and it will be, sadly, at a much higher level and intensity than it was before. Yeah, and that was in his Truth Social post that we went over at the beginning of this episode. Iran's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesman said Tehran was reviewing a U.S. proposal and would convey its view to mediator Pakistan, the Iranian student's new agency reported. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, mediating between Tehran and Washington, said he was grateful for Trump pausing the operation. Sharif said on Wednesday that the pause will go a long way towards advancing regional peace, stability, and reconciliation during his sensitive period. So this is pretty much the biggest news of the war today. Again, pausing Project Freedom. This is what Trump has basically decided to do, but the markets have responded super positively to this when we look at all of them. So let's take a look at the markets real quick. Again, we look at the markets. Dow surges 600 points. The S&P 500 posts first close above 7,300 as traders hope for Iran deal. So it's like, come on, Trump. You know, everybody, if Trump wants a victory, the victory is going to be ending this war. That is going to be Trump's victory. The world will call Trump the victor if he can refrain from, basically being influenced by the Israelis. Okay, and so oil responded to this in a very positive way as well. WTI crude is at $96.10. Brent crude is down to $101.90. Murban crude, $97.90, and natural gas is at $2.72 on average. And then when we look at crypto, also a lot of good news with crypto today. It appears that the Clarity Act is being pushed forward. Well, not yet. It's not officially being pushed forward, but they're saying that July 4th could be that next markup date, and that's kind of what the Senate is saying. The Fear and Greed Index is at 51, so people are feeling better than they have been since yesterday. We were somewhere around 46. 44 and 46 for the past 2 days this week. Bitcoin's up today, $81,223. Ethereum's at $2,344.20. XRP's up at $1.42. Binance is at $646.61. Solana's at $89.52. Tron is at 34 cents. Dogecoin at 11 cents. Hyperliquid's at $43.26. A lot of people making trades on there, making money on there. Cardano, ADA, the ticker, 26 cents. Charles Hoskinson has not been too happy about the Clarity Act. We'll see what that actually means. And hey, listen, if you're in the chat, if you're listening to this, are you invested in crypto? What is your favorite cryptocurrency? Because I think this is going to be very revolutionary to what we are going to see in the future. Because crypto's looking pretty good today. And overall, the markets, again, they're responding pretty positively to everything we've been seeing in the news today. All right, so when we look at all of this, it's pretty good stuff. Okay, Justin, Iranian parliament speaker says President Trump's operations, trust me, bro, failed. So again, we're seeing a little bit of mixed messages. Now back to routine with Operation Foxios. And then we have Donald Trump confirming Iran has agreed to no nuclear weapons. This is huge. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and they won't, and they've agreed to that, among many other things. Yes. So again, this was from Eric Doherty. Let's take a listen to this clip.
An excursion down to Iran because we can't let them have a nuclear weapon. Look, and this is very simple. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon because as tough as they are, we want to keep them alive. We want to keep all of you alive. Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Put a nickel in the jar, please.
And they won't. And they've agreed to that, among other things. Yeah.
Put a penny in the jar. Yesterday I was saying, put a penny in the jar for every time Trump says Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, because we've been hearing it so much since 1967 from Netanyahu, right? Meanwhile, Israel reportedly experienced a Korashmar Khorashmar missile strike. This war is going to end tonight. Pray for Iran. This was today. So, again, look at that footage. Look at that. So this is, again, where did this say this was? This was in Israel. This happened in Israel tonight. Pretty huge. Pretty big news. I wonder if that's like their, probably some kind of natural gas plant, oil plant. That's my guess. Huge. The war isn't ending anytime soon. I mean, this is essentially why the Israelis don't want to end the war, while Trump does want to end the war. Again, we should end the war. You know, we need a strategic retreat from the Strait of Hormuz in order for us to secure our allies across the world. Again, we already had the Strait of Hormuz secured, and the best way to secure it and to have any kind of power over it is exactly what Trump is doing now, honoring these agreements between the Iranians. You know, there has to be that agreement. But the Israelis just, I don't think they're going to let that happen, right? And that's kind of our biggest worry right now. That's kind of what seems to be stepping in the way of everything. So here's one more statement. President Trump fires back at a reporter asking why Iran has refused to accept a deal with the U.S. Iran has refused to submit. You seem optimistic now. What's the difference about now than in others when a deal has seemed close?
It's very simple.
You're facing an opponent right now in Iran that has
I think we might have already watched
refused
this,
to submit.
but we'll watch it again real quick.
You seem optimistic now, so you may be closer to a deal. What's different about this moment now than in other moments where a deal has seemed close?
Well, why do you say they refused to submit? You don't know that. You don't know
Yeah, I
what's
played
going
this
on
at the
right
beginning
now.
of the episode, but we'll play it again.
And a few
Short
days
clip.
ago, it's a long time ago. You know, in the world of war, a few days ago, no, they.
And loading.
And we'll see if we get there. If we get there, they can't have nuclear weapons. You know, it's very simple.
So, yeah, I mean, again, that was a big statement by Trump. And, again, our other news, our other featured story is that Vivek Ramaswamy wins the Ohio GOP primary, setting up tight governor race. We're going to cover all of this. We're going to cover Nick Fuentes' response to this. And, honestly, I agree with mostly everything he said, maybe in a more respectful manner. But we're going to cover that clip. And, honestly, at the end of the day, I don't believe Vivek Ramaswamy is America First. I don't think he's the right selection for Ohio. I mean, think about the message that this actually sends, you know, to the future of the GOP, right? They're going to say, well, I guess they want Indians. I guess they want foreigners. And really, that's what this is. It's not about racism. That's not what this is about. This is about, you know, maintaining our identity as a country, A. And B, this is the same man who said Americans are lazy. This is the same man who wore bare feet to an interview. This is the same man who believes that, you know, basically he was completely funded by Peter Thiel and, you know, J.D. Vance and all of these people. And it's like, who is J.D. Vance? Well, he's the same guy who named his own son after Vivek. Isn't that a little weird? And his wife is, I mean, it's like, seriously, his wife's an anchor baby. You think about this, and it's like, what were to happen if we were to take away birthright citizenship? Senator Rand Paul literally just passed a bill, or he had passed a bill to the resolution table, basically to extract birthright citizenship for, you know, citizens who have birthright citizenship. And so I think that would be more of a positive thing. But it's like, if that were to happen, you know, what would happen if J.D. Vance were to be the president and then the first lady is an Indian and he has Indian kids? And it's like, well, wouldn't they not be citizens anymore? It's kind of weird, right? It's just weird to me. And it's like, this is the best the GOP has to give us? I think no. And I don't accept this as America First. And I honestly would recommend, honestly, as much as I don't like any of the candidates, I don't like Amy Acton either, but I think it would be in America's best interest and in Ohio's best interest to deal with Amy Acton versus this, because this is going to be the new precedent. And you're going to be seeing more of this, the anchor baby kind of standard. Okay. And this is really what they're pushing because they want the H-1B visas. Okay. So that's just kind of my opinion on that. What do you think? Maybe I'm wrong, but from where I'm sitting, I don't see this guy's America First at all. Vivek Ramaswamy, a Republican former presidential candidate, won his primary race for Ohio governor on Tuesday, setting up a closely watched contest in November's election. The biotech entrepreneur, who was endorsed by Donald Trump and briefly co-led Trump's so-called Department of Government Efficiency, DOGE, with Elon Musk at the start of the presidency's second term, beat Casey Putsch, the internet personality, to land a nomination. He was given a late lift by Trump on Tuesday, who called the 40-year-old Ramaswamy on social media young, strong, and smart. He will square off in the 3rd of November general election with Dr. Amy Acton, who won the Democratic nomination unopposed. Hutch, a political novice who became famous for his series of car guide videos on YouTube, has targeted Ramaswamy's South Asian heritage in campaign ads, but was trounced on Tuesday, winning less than 20% of the vote. So, and really a lot of that was because he really didn't even campaign that well. He didn't have a lot of funding, and it just wasn't the best campaign. And so when you look at all of that, listen, I think we need an America First candidate, and this is not the guy. And I think Ohio should maybe, really consider what they're actually doing and what they're voting for, because, you're really voting for H-1B visas. You're really voting for more of that to come in and replace your jobs. You're voting for data centers, AI data centers, to come and take your jobs. And so it's like, don't be complaining to the city council later when Kevin O'Leary and all these, tech billionaires and the Indians are coming in and they're taking your jobs, okay? Because this is what you're voting for with Vivek Ramaswamy. You have to be very diligent of that. At least with Dr. Amy Atkin, the Democrat, yeah, you'd have to vote Democrat one time just to make sure that you can basically, I just feel like the narrative of the, Democratic Party is already so lost, and I think they're actually rather easy to defeat. But what the GOP is doing is they're trying to reset a new standard that, hey, we need to make it okay to bring in more H-1B visas, and this is our way, this is our Trojan horse of doing it. Okay, Ohio governor race, Vivek Ramaswamy and Dr. Amy Acton win GOP Democratic nominations in 2026 primary election. So here's a clip of what Vivek Ramaswamy had to say after his victory. They'll probably show me some kind of ad here. Of course they will.
Big corporate insurers are putting
Do I get paid for this, YouTube? Like making me look through all these ads, making the audience
Tonight
watch
we're
these
tracking
ads?
the results in the Ohio primary. With your phone, you can scan the QR code on your screen for a full list of local races and live results. You also see those results scrolling along the bottom of your screen throughout this broadcast. But right here, we have team coverage from Cleveland to Columbus, following the big races, including Ohio governor, the U.S. Senate, Congress, and key school levies.
Let's see
we
what they
begin
have
with
to
my
say
11
about it.
o'clock partner, Lena Lai, who is on assignment at our sister station in Columbus with the results from the governor's race. Lena, good evening.
Good evening, Russ. Yes, Ohio's race for governor is officially set, with Republican Vivek Ramaswamy easily winning his primary. He will now face Democrat Dr. Amy Acton in the November general election. She ran unopposed. So let's take a look at the results from the Ohio Republican primary for governor. Vivek Ramaswamy with a historic
that's a pretty huge
margin,
win.
a win with 82% over Casey Putsch with nearly 18%. Here is how it all played out for Ramaswamy tonight. Earlier tonight, Vivek Ramaswamy was declared the winner of the Republican primary by NBC less than 30 minutes after the polls closed. The biotech entrepreneur easily defeating automotive entrepreneur Casey Putsch, writing his endorsements from President Trump and the Ohio Republican Party. Ramaswamy.
And why do you think Donald Trump is supporting this? I think it's because of H-1Bs, cheap labor, free votes, baby. Think about what this really is about. And think about the fact that Trump isn't running again. He's not going to have another term. So he doesn't really care too much. And you have to think about who's coming in after Trump. Well, it's going to be J.D. Vance. It's going to be Marco Rubio. It's going to be Tucker Carlson. One of these three, most likely in 2028. So you think about what's being lined up. You think about who backs Vivek Ramaswamy, who paid for this. Well, Elon Musk. You think about Larry Ellison. You think about Peter Thiel. All these people are the financiers of Vivek Ramaswamy, J.D. Vance. And so it's like, why do we really want this candidate representing America First when he, again, called Americans lazy? Okay? And it's like, at the same time, he is going to bring in, he's not even a Christian. Vivek Ramaswamy isn't even a Christian. So we're going to let him just be in politics now? We're going to deal with him for the rest of our lives? I say, no, we don't, and we should not. And I don't think this is the America First position. I think Ohio would be better off dealing with Amy Acton, because I think that, the Democrats are going to be far easier to overthrow over a long period of time. And then in 2028, we get somebody far more right-wing, somebody more America First, somebody maybe who is American and not an anchor baby in America. And that's my feelings on this. This has nothing to do with race. This has nothing to do with racism. I'm not a racist. I don't hate anybody. But at the end of the day, this is not the guy, in my opinion.
Into the primary with nearly $40 million in the bank. $25 million of it was his own. In Columbus tonight, he addressed his supporters, laying out the path for November.
Look at that receding hairline. Ugh.
We are in this because we believe that together, with the complementary skills that we bring to the table, We are the two people in this state who can work together as a team.
You can't look at this and say that this is natural. You can't look at this picture that you're seeing on the screen. You can't really believe that this is the future of America and America first. You got two bad candidates. You got Vivek Ramaswamy, and then you got a Jewish woman, Dr. Amy Acton. Okay? But at the end of the day, I would rather go with the Democrat, Amy Acton, versus this guy, because at the end of the day, it's like, listen, who's losing the narrative war? The Israelis and those funding the Israeli wars and all of that. The Jews right now, not all Jews are bad. Yes, we all know that. We got to say that. But in this race, we have literally two non-American candidates. And one of them has the interest of bringing in H-1B visas, data centers, and putting them right in your backyard. And so it's like, I'm not for this. And I'm not for this dude. And I just don't think this guy is America first, and I think he's totally inauthentic, personally. But what do you think? Maybe I'm wrong.
Lead Ohio back to our true potential, to our greatest heights, to put more money in your pocket, to bring down those costs, and to give our kids the world-class education that is the birthright of every Ohio.
Birthright. There's that key word, birthright. He loves that birthright citizenship, right? Birthright. Okay? He wants to mix and entangle these words. And it's just like, who are you? Who is this guy? Why is he running for politics here? Like, you're not an American, Vivek Ramaswamy. You're not. You don't believe in America. You want the clout. You want the money. And you want the status. You want the power. But you're not going to get it. Because America's going to vote Democrat, most likely. And I think they should. Because this is not the America First position at all. Look at this guy. Just,
Iowa.
Come on.
And so
Come on,
we're asking
Ohio.
you tonight, on the night that we have secured
Use your brains.
our primary victory. Thank you for everybody who got us through this finish line with a historic margin.
Meanwhile, Democrat
Yikes.
Amy Acton officially
Yikes.
captured her party's nomination for Ohio governor tonight, again running unopposed, but using her victory speech to sharpen the contrast with Ramaswamy ahead of November. Dr. Acton leaned into her Youngstown roots and affordability-focused message.
Amy Acton
She
all day
went
long
straight
over
at
this guy.
Ramaswamy's
Come
wealth,
on.
attacking that part.
At
but
least she's
she
one of
also
us.
painted a
At
message
least she's like
of
our
hope
own
and
people.
change.
At least she's like an
I
American.
always think about our
I mean,
state
yeah, she's Jewish,
seal,
but at the end of the
and
day,
you
it's like,
always
hey.
watch that sun, and you might be seeing it on. That sun is rising in Ohio, and I believe in the promise.
These are two terrible candidates. I know. It's just Ohio, you couldn't have gotten two worse candidates. You know, this is the whole thing of Republicans and Democrats. They're all on the same team. They're all against your best interests. This is what it's all about. To completely go against the America First agenda, the Make America Great Again agenda, the MAGA agenda. They want to subvert it into something that you don't even recognize. And by the time you recognize it, the data centers are going to be loud. They're going to be shooting. They're going to be sucking up all the water. And you're going to be hearing it all night while you sleep. And then in the meantime, H-1B visa is going to be taking your job. And you're going to be in the city council. And that city council is not going to be white or European or even Jewish. No, they will be an Indian. They'll all be Indian and H-1Bs. And they will tell you, you do not have a right to come in here. You are silenced and you are going to jail. Sheriff, take him away. And this is going to be the future if you don't see what's happening before your eyes. There needs to be a true peaceful revolution against everything that's happening. Republicans and Democrats, they're giving you two terrible candidates. And Ohio, you just ate it up because you voted for Vivek Ramaswamy thinking, well, he's an American. He's an entrepreneur. Donald Trump said, yes, I love him. Elon Musk said, yes, I love him. But guess what? These guys are business guys. They're entrepreneurs. A lot of you guys are not. And you're not thinking like them. You're not thinking about, the real reason that they wanted Vivek Ramaswamy to win. One, they wanted him for the GOP. It's money. It's all about the money. Okay? And secondly, it's like their means to do this is going to be replacing you with AI, data centers, and all of this stuff. And then, again, literally a Hindu freaking candidate. Like Vivek Ramaswamy is a Hindu. This woman is Jewish. It's like, okay, well, we've been dealing with that for a long time. But it's like, this is a whole new level. This is like a whole new game now. Now we're just inviting in the idea that anybody who is not really an American, like, oh, they're an anchor baby American, birthright American. Well, I guess anybody who's a birthright American can just represent America. Isn't that kind of a joke? I think it is. I think it's a major joke. And again, it's not anything against Indians. This is nothing against Jewish people, but we need America First candidates. This is ridiculous.
I believe it is time for a change, and Ohioans everywhere are moving in a movement, and we are going to create our future together.
So polls currently show that this race is very tight. So
two
Russ,
terrible
expect
candidates.
for that money to flow. Expect those ads to be.
It's such a joke. The elites are just laughing. The Jews are just putting their hands together saying this is totally the end of America. We're going to love it. We're going to make so much money in Israel. It's going to be beautiful. And then the Indians are saying, oh, yes, we are going to take over America. We're going to take all of the white women. It is going to be amazing. This is going to be what you see happen. And so it's like, you know, it's up to you, Ohio. What is the future you want? Do you believe in a future of America where it's anchor babies and birthright citizenship? Or do you believe in having some kind of chance of actually saying no to H-1B visas, saying no to data centers and all of this stuff? Because I would vote Democrat any day just to not have some, you know, anchor baby running for president and potentially one day running for president. He's already done it. So it's like, think about what his ambitions are. And it's like, it is to be president. And what happens when somebody like Vivek Ramaswamy, who is not a Christian, who is Hindu, and he's very culturally pro-Indian versus pro-America, what do you think is going to happen? You know, it doesn't kind of irritate you that these people who are not even Americans get to tell you how to be an American? Like they were just born here, but yet they're like, you know, they're not even like a first or a second or a third generation American. These are like literally people who just, you know, they showed up here and they got funded by Peter Thiel. It's like, you're just going to let the elites flip you over like that. Think about what you're doing, ladies and gentlemen.
24/7, it's going to feel like coming up before November. Back to you.
Think about what you're voting for. Think about what you're voting for. But yes, so ultimately the markets reacted pretty positively to all of this, and it actually ended up being, you know, a pretty, or not, well, I wouldn't say they reacted positively to Vivek Ramaswamy. I was talking more about, you know, Trump's pause of the Project Freedom, which is to allow, you know, vessels to go through the Strait of Hormuz. So this is all good. This is all progress. Here's a report from Fox News. Gas prices have surged to $4.53 per gallon as airlines slash 13,000 flights globally this month.
Good evening, I'm Bill Malugin, and this is your Fox News report. U.S. forces hitting an Iranian ship trying to break the blockade in the Gulf of Oman, as both sides seemingly move towards an initial agreement to end the war. President Trump continues to threaten strikes if Iran doesn't make a deal. Prices at the pump rising to $4.53 today, and airlines are cutting about 13,000 flights this month globally. Confirmed hantavirus cases from the deadly cruise ship outbreak reaching.
Oh yeah, this was huge. We'll be talking about this later.
The sick passengers have been evacuated. The ship now heading to Spain's Canary Islands. The FBI raiding the office of Virginia State Senate Leader Luis Lucas today, all part of an ongoing corruption investigation. Agents
of course, that's America. Corruption everywhere.
Cannabis dispensary believed to be linked to her. The Democrat led Virginia's efforts to redraw its congressional maps. A Special Forces veteran accused of trying to kill his wife is found dead, ending a days-long manhunt in Tennessee. Craig Berry allegedly shot his wife before fleeing into the woods. Authorities say he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And the FDA green-lights the sale of fruit-flavored e-cigarettes for adults for the first time in a major policy shift. The agency had previously banned most fruit-flavored vapes.
God, those things are bad for you.
To minors. Vape companies have been urging President Trump to loosen those restrictions. In Washington, I'm Bill Malugin. Have a great night.
I like my nicotine pens, okay? All right, nothing wrong with nicotine. They've done new studies on nicotine. And again, the United Nations is supposed to be a place of peacefully resolving global conflict. It is a real test of the UN if the UN cannot condemn Iran's criminal threats to shipping in the Strait of Hormuz.
The United States hoping for a vote in the coming days on a proposed UN Security Council resolution that would say that Iran...
Yesterday, we covered how the United Nations also has no money, something to also consider.
Iran must stop attacks in the Strait of Hormuz and help remove the mines that it placed illegally in the Strait, or they will face more sanctions. A similar resolution was vetoed by Russia and China last month. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says this shouldn't be difficult to pass.
I think it's a real test for the UN, right? As a function, as something that functions
Very
to
interesting.
solve global problems. What is the purpose of the UN? The UN was supposed to be a place where you could peacefully resolve global conflict. Right now,
like
you have
Israel
a country
settling
who is
Lebanon,
unlawfully, criminally, and illegally taking possession of an international waterway and blowing up commercial vessels and putting mines in the water. All we're asking them to do is to condemn
because
it,
we
to
attacked
call
them
on
first,
Iran
Rubio.
to stop blowing ships, to remove these mines, and to allow humanitarian relief to come through, because there's humanitarian aid that's trapped. That's it. This is a very modest request.
Yeah, sure. I mean, at the end of the day, we did attack them first on Israel's behalf by Israel's accord. Breaking, Iran has reportedly agreed to remove enriched uranium as part of a 30-day preliminary peace framework with the United States, while Washington is expected to ease restrictions on frozen Iranian assets. See how easy it was, Trump? See how easy it was when you actually, did what you had to do? Listen, at the end of the day, who really has the nuclear weapons? It's not Iran. Never was Iran. And that's the main argument that you hear from the MAGA base, who is still on board with this Iran war. They say, well, Iran can never have a nuclear weapon, though. Trump keeps saying that. Well, you want to know who was saying that before Trump? Since 1967? Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel. And he's still saying that today. And, there'll always be another country that they're going to say this about. This is the same thing that happened with Iraq and Afghanistan. The WMDs in Iraq that were never found, that didn't exist. And all to really host an entire regime change, which we have done. Okay, so all of this has been done, and it's like we need to be focusing on a strategic withdrawal so that we can focus on our own home soil, so we can focus on our own borders. The U.S. northern border, everybody talks about the southern border. The U.S. northern border is completely open right now, and nobody's even talking about that. So we have our own problems in America to be dealing with versus the other side of the planet. Yes, I believe we need to be securing the Strait of Hormuz because we already had it, but the best way to secure it is to get the F out of there. And at the same time, to be able to remain some kind of strategic, relationship. We need to have allies on our side. And the entire world is not on our side right now because we are doing whatever Israel says for Israel, on Israel's behalf, for their own benefit. That is the whole problem here. Democrats are reportedly preparing for a major impeachment push against President Trump if they regain control of Congress in the midterms, per Brandon Weichart. Excuse me. Weichart also says Democrats believe Trump will throw Pete Hegseth to the wolves once investigations begin. Probably. I mean, the guy is kind of like not fit to be in the position that he's in. Meanwhile, today, oversight Democrats say Howard Lutnick lied during his testimony to Epstein. So Howard Lutnick voluntarily spoke to Congress today and gave a testimony. And what we heard was hours of testimonies where Lutnick was attempting to redefine the meaning of the word I. He claims that when he said, I would never be in a room with Jeffrey Epstein, he meant only him and Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein was so gross to him that he wasn't willing to be in a room with him. But he was perfectly okay with his wife and family being in a room with Epstein. Well, that's kind of weird. He's lying. The American people deserve to see the sweat on his brow as he struggles to answer basic questions about his lies to the American people. Fully agree. And, mind you, let me remind you, Howard Lutnick is the same guy who took a day off of work, one day off of work, never missed work. And supposedly this was to drive his kids to school or some event on 9/11. But he also made a lot of money. Same right along with Larry Silverstein, who made $4.4 billion off of the two Twin Towers via the insurance claim. Think about all of these things. Quite interesting how it works, right? And what they're not going to be willing to tell you with all of this. Everything that you're seeing today happen in the media, it's all a psyop, and you have to understand how these things work. So this is what the Democrats had to say about Howard Lutnick. I'm not a Democrat. I am probably as far right as it gets. I just don't think Trump is far right enough, and I don't think that the Trump administration is far right enough for what we need to accomplish. We have had no border. We've had no deportations, basically. ICE was basically withdrawn from Minneapolis, which it's like, why would we do that? That just showed complete and total weakness to, a total crime, illegal immigration. All of this needs to be handled in our country. This is basic common sense policy, right? Every country has borders, and we don't. Still, we don't have a border wall, and the northern border is still wide open. So we got all of these problems, and, none of these people are helping.
Today, Chairman Comer said that he hadn't seen any evidence.
They all work for the same team. They all work for Netanyahu.
And that's actually the problem with the Trump administration, this Republican majority in Congress, because lying to the American people is wrongdoing. and Howard Lutnick lied to the American people.
He did, though. He did.
I hope.
And I also forgot to mention, don't forget that Howard Lutnick he benefited from the buyback of all of the tariff money. So his company, Cantor Fitzgerald, or I think it was a son's company or something like that. Fact check me if I'm wrong. Something to that extent. Cantor Fitzgerald, they ended up buying back like all of the tariffs, all of the tariff revenue, because the courts had shot it down and said it was illegal. So who got to benefit the most? Howard Lutnick. So it's like, who knows the game? Howard Lutnick. And it's like, who did Howard Lutnick work for? Epstein. And they were all in the Epstein files. They were good buddies. And then you wonder about this entire cabal. What is it? Well, it's a Jewish cabal. And that's just the way it is. It's the way the cookie crumbles. It's not about anti-Semitism. You know, this is a show about analysis. We respect everybody, but this is just the way things are, falling. This is the way the cards are falling.
Today that we would have heard some remorse, some contrition from Secretary Lutnick for flat out lying to the American people. Instead, what we've heard thus far is hours of testimony where he's attempting to redefine the meaning of the word I. He claims that when he said, I would never be in a room again with Jeffrey Epstein, he meant only him and Jeffrey Epstein. Epstein was so gross to him, so disgusting, that he wasn't willing to be in a room with him, but he was perfectly okay with his wife and family being in a room with Epstein.
Got him.
He's lying.
Yes, he is.
Today's transcribed interview is part of the ongoing
Not hard to tell.
Because the American people deserve to see the video of what's taking place in there. They deserve to see the sweat on the
100%.
Secretary's brow as he struggles to answer basic questions about his lies to the American people. So we're going to continue to listen and ask tough questions, but unfortunately it appears that Secretary Lutnick is not going to take any responsibility for lying to the American people today.
And don't forget what we're going to be covering also today when we get to the bookmarks and we get to some of these other stories, might even be the next one. We're talking about how the entire markets basically are showing all of this insider trading that happened today, right before Trump's statements. And that came from Axios. So really interesting. We're going to be digging into all of this tonight. So again, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe. If you enjoy the news, if you enjoy the information, I would appreciate it. We want to build this channel up. We want to build it up for more news, and we want to make it a positive thing for the future, right? So also, I thought that this was pretty interesting. This is what Nick Fuentes had to say last night about the Vivek Ramaswamy victory and kind of what that means for the Republican Party, the GOP, and why Nick Fuentes would not vote for why Nick Fuentes would not vote for Vivek Ramaswamy.
It turns out that what is at stake is not actually what happens in Ohio. It doesn't even really matter that much. Ohio holds a governor's election every 4 years, and a Republican almost always wins. So what is this election really about? It doesn't even matter so much what happens in Ohio, what a Democrat might do, what a Republican might do. What is at stake here is that if Vivek Ramaswamy becomes the governor of Ohio, it doesn't end there. It never ends.
No, it doesn't.
He becomes governor of Ohio, and then he's a statewide elected official. He is now on the ladder to build a national political profile for himself.
This is what I was saying.
So that means another Ramaswamy for president campaign. That means he's going to be in another Republican cabinet at some point. We're going to be dealing with this guy for the rest of our lives. But it's not just him. It also sends a message to every other Republican in the country, every prospective candidate, but also to the Republican Party, which is that this works. The voters will tolerate anything. We can choose this piece of shit. We can choose this arrogant.
Again, listen, we are just playing, what Nick Fuentes had to say. I'm not saying I agree with everything. I would have come at it a little bit differently, but listen, this is just his opinion, his statement, and we're covering it. All right, so if you got a problem with what he said, leave it in the comments, and we'll look at it later.
Gauche Striver, this pretentious billionaire douchebag, we can pick him to be the nominee.
Seriously.
And people in a state like Ohio, Appalachia, Rust Belt, white, MAGA, white working class, blue collar, we can put a guy like that in Ohio and he could still win. And what message does that teach the Republican Party? It tells them that that's the new blueprint. That's the new model. And that's going to work there, and it's going to work in Pennsylvania, and it's going to work in Michigan and Wisconsin. And that is the new ideology of the party. It worked in Ohio. So that's the party. Either the voters will tolerate it, or it worked, so it's a winning message, and we'll celebrate it. But that is what we will teach
100%.
the GOP. Not only that
Absolutely
we're okay
right.
with it, but they're going to give us more of that. And again, think about that inversion. What we have been getting, at least in name only, at least nominally from Trump, is a message of nationalism. At the minimum, there's this expectation that we're going to have mass deportations, a border wall, a tariff schedule.
Right.
We're going to have protectionism. At least with Trump, there is the expectation, because of that original campaign, that at least they have to pay lip service to these ideas of nativism, immigration restriction, trade protection, remanufacturing, reindustrialization, all these things.
100%.
Because that was the original movement. If we get Vivek, it's a huge backslide, and you're telling people you have to get comfortable with a browner, less Christian, less right-wing, less nationalistic Republican Party.
Are you
You're
okay
just
with
gonna
that?
have to
like, are you okay with that? Seriously, I'm not. I'm not, personally, but we'll go on.
Shut up and get used to it. The new GOP is going to be striver Indians, Jews, Chinese, gays. That's going to be your new GOP. No, they're not going to be Christian. No, they're not going to be white. No, they're not going to even like white people. And no, they're not even going to be conservative. They're going to be libertarian.
How ridiculous. It makes
and
no
you're
sense.
going to get used to it because they have the money. Because Vivek is a billionaire. Because David Sachs is a billionaire. Because they're going to cough up the money.
Yep.
And we're going to get that. That is going to be the GOP now. And that, by the way, is our only shot. It's either the Democrats or the GOP. If you give Vivek the victory, the GOP backslides away from, Trumpism was a failure. It's going to get worse. We're going to have techno-libertarians and, Zionist nationalists running the party.
100%.
And then that
Huge
is your
problem.
only option other than the Democrats, because the GOP is the organized, institutionalized opposition to the left. So what is really at stake in Ohio? It's not what happens in Ohio. It's not about the governance. What is at stake in Ohio is the fate of the Republican Party, which is the fate of the organized opposition.
Bingo.
If Vivek wins, sure, it's going to be better than the Democrat. Certainly. 100%. Take it to the bank. If Vivek wins, he's going to be a better governor for Ohio for 4 years. He's going to be marginally better. Maybe he will be, maybe he won't be. I imagine if he's Republican, he'll be better. But so what? In 4 years, there'll be another election, and maybe he wins and maybe he doesn't. But what happens after that is you teach the Republican Party at the national level. First of all, you give him a career, and he's going to be in the pantheon of Republican leadership for the rest of our lives, potentially. But you also teach the GOP as an organization a lesson, which is not only that we will tolerate this, but that this works. That this works.
Yeah. And it's ridiculous.
And they can try it again, and they can give us more of this. They don't need to pander anymore to white people. They don't need to pander anymore to Christians. They don't need to even pretend to be Christian.
And then what do you know? You don't even have a Christian country. What if this guy were to become the president? And again, you have to think about the H-1B visas. You have to think about the data centers. This is what's going to come in. All these Ohioans are going to suddenly say, oh, we don't want this. We don't want data centers. And they're going to start, you'll see all of the Twitter videos. You'll see it all coming out. And everybody will be all up in flames about it. And there'll be nothing that can be done because the city council will be full of H-1B visa Indians. And that is the future. That is the destiny. And that is what Fuentes is talking about.
They don't even need to pretend to care about our heritage or white people or anything like that. That's the lesson you're teaching them. So it is so much more important in this election that he loses. Even if he might be a marginally better governor, what he does to the national GOP is far more detrimental.
I don't even think that. I don't even think it's going to be what Nick Fuentes is saying. I don't think he will do a good job as governor. And if he does, yeah, you'll see some job growth. But it's going to be from the worst means of job growth. It's going to be from more data centers and more, AI over you, the human beings. It's not going to be good.
Why he has to lose at any cost. That's the game that we have to play. The message has to be, if you give us an Indian billionaire who hates God, we will send it back.
Yes.
We will take the Democrat. We will take our lumps. We'll take the L. We will re-roll in 4 years. Try again.
I'm willing.
You gave us Vivek. You gave us this shit. We're sending it back. We don't want it. You can have your Vivek back. You can have your candidate back. We don't want him. Try again in the next 4 years. That's your problem. And you know what? That's going to hurt the GOP more than it's going to hurt anybody in Ohio. I'll tell you that much. Because you know what it means if Vivek gets the governorship in Ohio? How many kickbacks for his friends that J.D. Vance knows? J.D. Vance is a venture capitalist. That means that he invests, he makes all these very risky bets in tech companies. And he worked with Peter Thiel. So they're putting money into Anduril, and they're putting money into all these different tech platforms. They're putting money into all these tech startups. What do you think happens when Vivek becomes the governor of Ohio as the Republican? Kickbacks. Kickbacks, that's what that means. Kickbacks for Republican billionaires, kickbacks for Silicon Valley, for little tech, kickbacks for the politically connected to J.D. Vance. Why would we reward these people?
And then
Why
H1Bs.
would we reward the GOP? Why would we reward this patronage network with these kickbacks from the state of Ohio when they're giving us an Indian Hindu that hates us and is an immigrant?
And called Americans lazy.
People say, you're only shooting yourself in the foot if you don't vote for the Republican. No, we're shooting you in the face. And that's what we want to do, metaphorically. People say if you don't vote for the Republican and you get a Democrat, you're cutting your nose to spite your face. You're shooting yourself in the foot. You're only hurting yourself. No, you're wrong. We're hurting you. Because if Vivek doesn't win the election, then Anduril doesn't get its kickbacks. If Vivek doesn't win the election, Les Wexner doesn't get his kickback. If Vivek doesn't win the election, none of the billionaires, none of the Republicans get what they want. Good.
And why should they, though? That's my thing. This is why I agree with Nick Fuentes here, is because why should the Republicans win? What have we gotten out of it? What has the Republican Party gotten out of any of this? No mass deportations. ICE completely just abandoned and, taken out of Minneapolis. No border wall. That never got done. At the same time, we have Israel first rhetoric every single day. White Christians, no justice, no law and order in any of the cities, big cities around the country. We have Texas becoming a Muslim state today. Greg Abbott and those kind of, what is happening? We are seeing the GOP completely be infiltrated by these H1B these anchor babies. And that's my problem with this. I have nothing against Indians. I am not a racist. I have nothing against any kind of race. My issue is that this is not America first. This is not American. It's just not American. And it's a joke. To anybody who's high IQ in politics who understands what's going on, this is all a joke. It is completely a joke, and they're laughing at you. And they're laughing at you, Ohio, for actually voting for it. And so it's just totally counterintuitive to what this country was really built for and all about. And it's going to be ugly because you're going to see more H-1B visas than you have ever seen in your life. And he could potentially become the president one day. And if that happens, you no longer have a Christian country. You realize that, right? You realize that if Vivek Ramaswamy were to win, you would not have a Christian country anymore. That would all go away. It is going to be an Indian country. It already practically is. And just like all of Europe. So there needs to be a stand against that. And at the same time, these Democrats are far easier to control. They're quite frankly, Democrats are not that smart. Quite frankly, Amy Acton is not that smart. Quite frankly, they're quite easy to control. And so I think there could be a peaceful revolution if a Democrat were to win in this instance, because it's what is the point of having, again, all these H-1Bs? And again, it's really going to be the same no matter what. But I don't want to set the precedent that, just because you're an anchor baby in America, you don't share any respect for real hardworking middle-class Americans, which is what Vivek Ramaswamy said as he wears his bare feet in his suit. It's disgusting. I mean, it doesn't match the American way. And so that's why I'm fully against him.
Fuck you. You didn't give us the candidate we wanted. Now you don't get the governor's mansion. You don't get the seat and all the benefits and privileges that are conferred by it. Vivek doesn't get a political career, and all his backers don't get the kickbacks that they want. So it is actually about sending a message. I am not a Democrat. I am not a leftist. I am not even liberal. I'm right-wing. I'm an identitarian. I'm a nationalist. And yeah, Amy Acton is not going to be good for Ohio. But here's the way it's going to shake out. In November, you got two candidates that can win the election. You got a Democrat and a Republican. You got Amy Acton and you got Vivek Ramaswamy. It's a binary. Those are the only two that are going to win. Now, if you vote for Vivek, Vivek is going to win. If you sit out, well, Vivek won't get those votes. But if you vote for Amy Acton, it improves her chances of winning. And so this is why I'm telling all the Groypers, we are going for the Democrat in Ohio.
Yep.
And I know it's unpopular, and I know it's controversial.
At all.
Good. And I know people are not going to like it. That's fine. People are going to hate me for this, and they're going to call me a shill, and they're going to say I'm a plant, and they're going to say we're vindicated on him. He turns out to be a Democrat. Fine. Let's be the villain. Let's be the villain, because we hate the Republican Party right now more than we hate the Democrats. You're damn right. And you want to know why? Because the Democrats, at least it's the devil we know. The Democrats are the enemy. I'll take an enemy over a traitor.
All day long. And that is what we need to realize. Needs to be a new precedent, and it can't be anchor babies for America. It's just not what this country was built about. It's not what it was all about. Moving on to our next story. WHO are contact tracing everybody on board that flight. Senior global reporter at the Mail Online, Nick Pizza, gives the latest on hantavirus hit cruise ship MV Hondius, including further cases that have led to potential 45-day isolation period. So I see this as like a Bill Gates, very much a Bill Gates kind of scheme here. This is very much looking like a COVID-19 kind of situation. So what do you guys think about this clip?
Back to COVID in the early days in 2020, you may remember
same game plan, same script, same blueprint.
Bizarrely enough, off Tenerife again, with people on board for 2 weeks, or the best part of 2 weeks, after developing symptoms of COVID before they were being let off. So we understand that ship will now make its way to Tenerife, where it will dock, and the people on board will be examined by medical staff in Tenerife. If they are not displaying any symptoms, they will be allowed to return home. But I think the thing that we need to bear in mind is that this virus has a 8-week incubation period, so it can take at least
8-week incubation
many
period
weeks before you start developing any symptoms or showing any signs of it. I'm here in Switzerland at the moment, where the news here this evening is a guy who was on board that ship and who left it at the end of April. So what are we looking at? Almost a week or so ago now. He
it's all just a psyop,
with his
all
wife,
just a human experiment,
and he
right?
received an email from the people who run that cruise, and they said to him, look, there has been a medical incident on board, and it's worth you keeping track of if you have any symptoms or anything like that. A couple of days ago, we understand from the Swiss authorities that he started to display these symptoms. He contacted his local GP, and his local GP advised him to go to the hospital straight away, where he is now in isolation. And the authorities in Switzerland say that he could be in isolation for up to 45 days.
Again, I'm getting the same vibes that we got during the beginning of COVID-19 with the Wuhan virus and all of this. I'm very much getting the same exact vibe, aren't you?
Oh my God. He's responding well to treatment, apparently, and his wife is self-isolating at home. But if you're looking at a 45-day isolation period, that is quite frightening. And you've touched on it earlier as well, other people who might be wary or might be concerned. There was an earlier incident where a passenger on board that ship, her husband tragically died. It's
just like the movie Outbreak. Totally, in my opinion, this is totally coordinated. It'll be the same thing. It's all about the money. It's all about the vaccine. It's going to be either a nano vaccine, a wearable wrist bracelet vaccine or something, a Band-Aid style vaccine. It'll be some kind of vaccine for sure, though.
Caught a flight from
they might not even use the same word as they did last time. It's going to be a lot more. It's going to be the same blueprint, different rhetoric, different vocabulary.
To Johannesburg, a flight with around 86 other people, passengers on crew on board. She then tragically died. And I understand that WHO are now contact tracing everybody who was on board that flight, as well as contact tracing everybody who was on board the flight that brought the guy back from Switzerland.
Contact tracing. There's that word again. That reminds me of the COVID rhetoric again. Contact tracing.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, look, I don't want to be unkind to these people because, you know...
Oh, my goodness. The Brits.
Obviously, you do want to get home and you do want to get the care that you need and all of that stuff, but I do think getting on a flight with however many, 80 or 100 unsuspecting members of the public who are just going about their business and, being trapped in that kind of, the kind of a tin can that is an aeroplane, that could be massively risky. And like you say, you're in Switzerland now. What's the mood like there about the fact that these people have returned to Switzerland and potentially come into contact with lots of people?
Well, the authorities here are trying to say, look, steady on, keep calm. There's nothing to be concerned about. This sort of virus is maybe half a dozen or so a year. There's half a dozen cases or so a year in Switzerland, and mainly brought in from abroad. But obviously it is dominating the news here this evening because of this guy who is in hospital in Zurich. Yes, it is of concern. As you say, being on an aeroplane, the air just keeps circulating round and round. The one crumb of comfort, I suppose, in all this is that the World Health Organization say that the risk remains low. But I'm sure that there still will be
for now
quite
until they make it worse, right?
Concern from people who were on board that flight, worried about relatives and perhaps children, elderly relatives, that sort of thing, who they could possibly pass this virus on to.
And so, yeah, I mean, same language, same rhetoric, same blueprint as COVID-19, if you ask me. I mean, it seems very obvious that's kind of what's happening. Updated cruise ship hit by a deadly hantavirus outbreak will reach the Spanish island of Tenerife within 3 days, with passenger evacuations to start from May 11th. Spain says international alarm spiked after 3 people aboard the MV Hondias died. So yeah, it's all the same stuff, like fear-mongering, really trying to get people scared. It's just like, obviously you take this stuff seriously. Obviously you don't just take it as a joke, but you have to remember you got to remember history. You got to remember what they did last time. What is the agenda? Where is the money? And it's in vaccinations. Always has been. Hantavirus outbreak on cruise ship MV Hondias, operated by Netherlands-based Oceanwide Expeditions, 147 passengers, crew from 23 countries, 7 cases, 2 Andes strain confirmed, 3 dead. Map history is Eurasia, Argentina, Canary Islands, and Spain. So this is kind of the route. This is where it's kind of been tracked. So this is kind of what's going on with it. A little bit more clips from it.
Well, good morning, everybody. This is my sad duty to inform you that one of our passengers sadly passed away last night.
Oh, man. Imagine being on that ship.
It was due to natural causes, we believe.
I didn't see anyone showing any symptoms, but one person unfortunately passed away on 12th of April, and the wife of that person also passed away right after we disembarked in St. Helena. We had actually a lot of relationships with other passengers, so I have contact, and now they are being very good isolation, and they are now applying the necessary cautions. They're not, in my view, are not scared.
The whole
of
point
the
is the vaccine,
itself,
just remember.
But they're just confused about the following days.
So we will see. We will see. Spain to receive hantavirus-affected cruise ship in Canary Islands. WHO says the risk of spread remains low as of today. So again, a lot of COVID-like stuff is very much reminds me of the same thing. So when we look at more of the breaking news, let's see what's new in the algorithm on X. Let's see if there's any big stories that hit while we were streaming. Breaking, this is from the Kobesi letter. The median sales price for a new single-family home fell $21,600 month over month, or negative 5.3% in March, to $387,400, the lowest since July 2021. This marks the biggest monthly decline since March 2024. After adjusting for inflation, the median real home price fell 6.3% month over month to the lowest since 2014. Meanwhile, the average sale price dropped 3.4% month over month in March to $503,100 to the lowest since 2025. As a result, the gap between the median and the average price is up to $115,700, the widest on record. This suggests a handful of luxury home sales are inflating the average price upward, while most Americans are purchasing at significantly lower price points. The housing market is weakening beneath the surface. There's a little bit closer look at that chart. And so you can kind of see it right here. This comes directly from Realtor.com, and the source is from the Census Bureau, Department of Housing and Urban Development. And this is kind of where we're at right now. So this is your average home price. So this is what we're looking at. As a real estate agent myself, again, you want to get some real estate, you want to work in real estate, work with me, BrendanEckerRealty.com, BrendanEcker, Realty.com, and I'll help you get your next real estate deal. I'm a Michigan real estate agent, so if you are out of state, that's okay. We'll get you your first property in Michigan. Got a lot of nice stuff here. Got our testimonials, and again, we even have we have our Gold Shark Media AI software available for any realtors or anybody who's just kind of searching through the website. Again, BrendanEckerRealty.com. If you're looking for a real estate agent, you want to study to become a realtor, I created an online course with 1,300 plus state exam practice questions, 200 plus vocab terms, chapter lesson ebooks, and it's relevant for all 50 states too. So yes, this entire thing was basically created by me, and I sourced it from everything that's basically used across the country, best textbooks, best study materials, best online courses, really all of the questions compile all of those. So it is truly good value if you're trying to become a real estate agent. And if you're a buyer, I can help you out. Again, that's what I do. Real estate agent, I'll help you get your next property. And listen, just because you might not live in Michigan, I can definitely help you with your next real estate deal. I work with anybody who's looking for real estate in Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills. That's typically luxury real estate. I like to focus on that, or commercial, or I can help you in Shelby Township, Washington Township, Romeo and Macomb County, suburban life, affluent to communities. Also, EXP territory, Rochester Hills, Oxford, and Lake Orion. Upscale communities perfect for families seeking excellent schools. Elmont, Metamora, Dryden, and Lapeer, some of Michigan's most admired markets in Michigan's suburban and rural towns. Ann Arbor, and Grosse Pointe. Got a Michigan homebuyer's guide for you guys if you want to learn a little bit more about real estate and kind of what you need to expect for getting your first place. And if you're a seller, I'll also work with you too. That's kind of where I can thrive. That's kind of where I can help you dominate the industry. Okay, at the end of the day, we're going to make sure that you get the best bang for your buck. We'll make sure that you get the most out of it, right? Selling a home is never easy. I'm not much of a guy who likes to sell either. But hey, you're going to make some money from it, hopefully, and I'll help you do that, and I'll help you make that process go smoothly. Okay, for investors, we work with you as well. Typically, think about it. You want to get a multifamily and a cash flowing property. That's what I can help you with as well. Got a lot of good stuff in Michigan. A lot of people are moving up here. Investment cycles are good here. At the end of the day, just kind of your property taxes. That's the only thing I would warn people of. But real estate's a pretty decent market. Commercial real estate, definitely. You want to buy a Starbucks. You want to buy a Chipotle. You want to buy a gas station, you want to buy a warehouse, a storage facility, I can help you with that as well. This is actually what I like to focus on mostly. I like to focus on commercial, retail, triple net properties, office buildings, industrial facilities, mixed use, all of that stuff I can help you with for sure. So I definitely recommend it. Work with us, invest with us, and we will get you hooked up for your next real estate deal, and we'll help you get everything you want and more. This is where it's at. Commercial real estate. BrendanEckerRealty.com. You can call me at 586-718-3901 or email me at brendan.ecker@exprealty.com. And if you want to grow in business, I also own Gold Shark Media AI, which is an AI CRM for entrepreneurs. Give you a 7-day trial to our software, and you'll get everything that you possibly need to grow your business. Speed to lead, AI summaries, Kanban pipeline, prospecting workspace, follow-up tasks, review capture, ROI reporting,